When I moved abroad as a student in 2010, I thought the way I felt all day, every day was normal. But after a couple of years, when I lost the ability to sleep and was forced to learn and use this technique, EFT tapping, I realized what I used to consider normal was not normal at all. And I've always said the reason I started practicing EFT was that I couldn't sleep. But that's only a corner of the tip of the iceberg of what the fact was that I had consistently lived with high level of anxiety, and it had been so constant that I thought it was normal. I didn't even think about it anymore. It was just there constantly. And the reason I was constantly anxious was that in my country, we always had to consider the possibility of raids carried out by something called the morality police. And they randomly raided the streets and just took women. And they took you if they believed you had not properly covered your hair or the rest of you. And you could be taken and jailed and treated really badly for a little bit of hair being exposed. And sometimes they took you even when you weren't showing any hair. Once they took me, and even some of their own colleagues seemed to be confused about why I was there. Because I was coming back from a language class at a quite restricted school where you couldn't study if you weren't covered almost from head to toe. And that's how I was that day, covered almost from head to toe. I looked like a nun, basically. So there was no way to prevent the experience unless you stayed home permanently and didn't have a life. The thing about those raids that contributed very much to my anxiety wasn't only the brutality and how they were carried out, but because of the randomness. That's what made me anxious the most, because you never knew when you were safe and when you weren't. You could just suddenly step to a street and face them, and they would take you. And that kept me in a constant state of uncertainty and was more harmful to my mental health than almost anything else. As a result, I battled anxiety and depression for much of my life until I got out. And I was okay and happy for a short time, enjoying the freedom. But then I had to face other types of uncertainty, like finding a job. What would you do? How could you manage alone in another country without your family? And how to face every day when you have all these questions in the back of your mind, and the paralyzing fear of what if you don't make it? What if you get back to that horror again, when I knew that mentally I was not capable of living in that kind of anxiety, feeling unsafe like that anymore. I knew, I knew I couldn't do that. I knew I would lose it. And it wasn't just that either. You were forced to live as something you weren't. You were born into it. It wasn't you. It was an identity that was forced on you. And maybe some people get used to that, but I never could. I never got used to that. I never got used to that identity that was forced upon me. I always said to my friends that home is where you're allowed to be yourself. That alone, being allowed to be yourself, that gives you a peace that most people in the world are so used to it that they cannot even imagine how not having it can change your life completely and keep you in a state that you feel like you're constantly in a losing battle because you're not allowed to be yourself, to have your own worldviews. You're born into a belief system and you are forced to continue living like that, or at least to pretend to be like that and believe in it, unless you leave everything you know and you come from and is familiar behind and step into something, and even then you're not sure you can make it. So what I'm trying to say is that when I got out, it was really good for a short while because I had the freedom, but then I had to face all these new uncertainties and not knowing what's going to happen, what my future is going to be, where I'm going to be. And this happened when I was already dealing with the PTSD from that past. And now I had all these new situation also that I was dealing with. And all these things led into a, a level of anxiety that at some point in 2020, I completely stopped sleeping. So I was forced to learn three techniques, and the one that works best was EFT tapping. And very quickly, I noticed a level of calm after I started practicing EFT every day that I had never experienced before. I couldn't remember being this calm and peaceful ever. And for the first time, I learned that what a normal state of mind and body actually felt like. And it was an aha moment for me when I realized that what's normal is peace of mind and a sense of openness in your body and not constant contraction and tension. And EFT tapping gave that to me. But I also realized it can give you power. It can help you empower yourself to achieve your goals. How? Because we create some patterns and we take those patterns into our subconscious. We learn them from what we see and observe and experience in the outside world. And we make that into a pattern without knowing into our subconscious. And we create similar experiences in our lives through that pattern in our subconscious. And when you use EFT tapping to change that pattern inside you, then your outside experiences also change. This has actually happened to me. I'm speaking from experience here. Something that repeatedly happens to you, it's most probably not random. You are creating it without knowing it. And then thinking, why people do this to me all the time? It's not them doing to you all the time. You create it because we create our life from inside out. So when you change that, and EFT tapping is the perfect tool for that, when you change that pattern inside you, you start experiencing different things outside you as well. And this is why I'm so passionate about EFT, because you cannot make lasting and real changes in the outside world around you unless you do it from inside out. And EFT tapping is a tool, a technique that does that so fast and so effectively that after 6 years of practicing it every day, sometimes it still surprises me how beautifully it works. And this is also why I'm so passionate about it. Before knowing this technique, I was so helpless. And I love to see people having this technique, having this means to empower themselves. So I'm curious, have you ever discovered that something you thought was part of your personality that was actually stress or one of those subconscious patterns that you weren't aware of and you had made a part of yourself without knowing, but aren't actually yours? Or let me put it this way, have you noticed that you have similar experiences with different people that you could think they might be one of those subconscious patterns that you created without knowing, and now you are recreating your life because of them and through them, and you think you can use this technique to change those patterns so you can experience different things, different scenarios, different experiences, different relationships maybe in your life.